I've seen 1.25. I actually pulled a couple, and I shared that with all. My colleagues by email. Everybody's seen the documents. So some of them use the CPI with a cap, and so I won't mention any of that, but they range between 1 and high 1s, like you said.
I've seen that document. I did not call around myself.
Right. So that's pulled from each site. So they range from 1 to high 1s, if I'm not mistaken. And I've looked at some in Westchester as well. I know 175 was like the most I've seen in one of the neighboring districts. Okay, so are there any further questions?
Amani?
Yes, sir.
Good question. We were given tonight another set of.
Can you put your mic on?
We were given this evening another set of numbers: 1.5, 6, 7, 8.
That was another scenario suggested at the November 6th meeting that we had not even gotten the report on in the emails we received last night. So that was the balance of the 4 reports we got last night, because we were looking at 4 scenarios. So that was the 4th one that wasn't included in the email last night.
Was this ever given to the union to speak about?
Dr. Adams can answer this.
No, it was not.
That's it?
Yeah, because it's just a little bit less in terms of numbers and so forth.
So what are we going to do?
The suggestion that those numbers were suggested, excuse me. I can't hear what he said because you guys are cheering loud, but can you hear what he said? Hold on, I really need to hear my colleagues. It's important for me to hear. Yes.
My response to that is, what are we going to do, nickel and dime them? I think that was discussed and we sent that.
The 4th, okay, to answer that, Tom, and to answer Mr. Donnelly and Mr. Cairns, that 4th scenario was recommended or suggested as one of the possible scenarios, since that's what we were doing at the last meeting on November 6th, because it fell within
My
the.
last meeting, when
Sorry.
I walked out the door, I was
Sorry,
confident.
I'm just gonna finish a sentence. Was in the range that we were seeing other districts are, in our
And we also
county
don't
we're
know
doing.
where other districts are in their contract, if that contract is expiring or what. So they may be sitting down to negotiate another contract.
A lot of them are, and that's what we
When I
discussed
left
at Rockland
session the
County
other
School.
day, I was confident that we had tasked Dr. Adams with seeing if the union would work with us with the numbers presented, 1.6, 1.8, 2.2, and 2.4. And that was the way I left the session November 6th. That was my understanding of where we stood as a board. And I believe Dr. Adams, we asked you to meet with Mr. Canning, the union, and to see if these numbers would work. That was my understanding.
Okay, Dr. Adams, everybody would like to speak. Would you like to speak?
Sure.
Let's go ahead.
I want to thank the teachers that have engaged in informal negotiations with me since August. It's varied in terms of composition. Don't know if I'm allowed to share those names. Am I allowed to share the names? John Canty, Patty Marina, Patty Macchia. I've got to tell the board and your membership, they were very honest from the very beginning, and it was with the backdrop that 4 years ago when we went through this, 4 years ago, 3 years ago, and what a horrible experience that was, I think maybe for both sides, and I would say a lack of trust would be an understatement, and so it took time to have these conversations, but whatever I asked of your membership to provide information to me, they did so. They asked me for information. Sometimes it didn't match up the way it should. We provided that information back. So it was an ongoing conversation for months, and I would apprise the board of how those negotiations were going. There came a point in time where it was very clear to me that arithmetically the 8% over 4 years was what was really the gold standard for this. Whether it's 152522 or 16182224, whatever, that seemed to be the minimum threshold. And at any point, of course, the parties could go from informal to formal negotiations. I think January 15th is the trigger date for that. And the advice that I was given was keep the dialogue going, and that's what we did. Information, a lot of information has been shared. Maybe respectfully, some questions are coming to the surface now, but on November the 6th, I would agree with Board Member Tom Donnelly that there seemed to be a consensus around a certain proposal, and that I was to communicate with your president, did the next day, and then was asked to meet with the numbers people, the two Patties. Which I did. I think it was the day after Veterans Day. I guess it was on a Tuesday morning. Met with them at the middle school, and it was indicated to me by your team, 16182224, and $1,000 first 2 years for those that don't receive a step, and we're going to have it voted on by the membership this afternoon. Okay? And being diligent, I informed the board, confidential memo, so it's not subject to anybody's eyes, and indicated at that time that I support the proposal. I still support the proposal. I recommend it for approval, and that it would be an action item on the November 20th agenda. And on or about Friday, whatever that was, the 16th, I received 10 or 12 questions requiring additional information or follow-up, and met with the board president, and we went over the questions so that I had a deeper understanding of what was being requested. You all remember, I think we had a snow day on Friday, and so, well, we left early Thursday, and then I think we took the day off Friday. But then when Anthony came in on Monday, Anthony was able to put numbers together for me, and that information was shared Monday night. There was a faux pas. One of the 15161718 was not available because there was an honest mistake made. But those questions that
I'm sorry, I have to interrupt. Friday night, we got the report? We got
No.
the last night?
Monday night.
Yes, thank you. Sorry, I heard wrong. I heard wrong, sorry. I apologize.
And so the electronic versions went out Monday night. Couldn't do them on Friday, but I had the questions, from the November 6th meeting. I received them on the 16th and tried to diligently have the responses there too. One of the questions that you've heard tonight and was via email was about how much have we used in our reserves over the last 5 years? You heard Anthony say 0. So we've not done any reserves. And I think perhaps those of you that I'm looking at might be my harshest critics when it comes to balancing the budget. I'm extraordinarily cautious when it comes to balancing the budget. And certainly several years ago, you know, we didn't see eye to eye, still don't, but they're on some things. But I would not propose a ratification of an agreement to the board that I thought was going to bankrupt the district. That would just be irresponsible. One of the questions I believe that the board president asked Anthony was about the 4-year projection. And I believe you told me that 4-year projection, or the projection that you had shared with the board this past spring, has actually improved, has it not?
Because of the TRS reduction.
Because of the TRS, because of
Yeah.
TRS.
At least, that first year.
For the time being.
Yeah.
And we've tried to be clear with our presentations on projections. I know it's a state requirement, it's difficult to do, and it's illusory at best in that how far out is that projection really going to last? Those assumptions. It's a very fluid process. We do it because we're required to do it, but we've said consistently we don't really stand behind those numbers beyond a couple of years. The recommendation, why I had included this as an action item, I believe in the proposal. I believe it's a reasonable proposal. I believe it's in the best interest of the school district. And I believe it reflects our commitment as a governance team to highly professional, highly successful, caring staff that meet with our and work with our kids each and every day. I wouldn't recommend it otherwise.
Okay, my comment, Mr. Chair, I want to clarify.
Sure.
The TRS, as you said, fluctuates, and so for the time being, I meant
Yeah, the first
dropped.
piece of news we saw from the 1920 budget, or excuse me, 1920 budget was positive.
right.
That was the first nugget of information we got. was
And that piece
positive.
you're unable to predict because you really don't
Well,
know.
we won't be able to predict that for much.
That-
Sure, it's not gonna stay the same.
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to make sure I'm not saying something that's inaccurate. Dr. Adams, I have a couple of questions about your comments. When you said the 8% seemed to be the gold standard, can you please clarify what you meant by that?
Well, from the beginning, in terms of the information that was shared and going back 7 or 8 years, we took a look at the CPI and what the contract had settled for over the last 7 or 8 years. I think there was at least 1 0, maybe two zeros. And taking a look at CPI, which one of the most recent numbers, I think, was at 2.0 or maybe 2.1. And so the conversation was trying to work around that 2% number. So the original proposal was 4 2s. And as has been alluded to tonight, and in the last 2 or 3 years, the building aid cliff of 2.3 million or 2.4 million that goes into effect in 1920, we've planned for, but it would be helpful if instead of 2 that first year, we could get it down to maybe a 1.6. That buys us a couple of extra $100,000, maybe $300,000, and that would be helpful for the district.
Dr. Adams, you're mentioning a comparison that doesn't put into account the steps at all. It just puts into account only the percentage compared to the CPI. But you're always at the step and the percentage when you compare to CPI. Moreover, you're saying that there was difficulty in the past. I'd like to really just go back in history a little bit. There was lack of trust and whatever it is you just reported. At the time, you recommended to the board seeking external counsel to help you with the process of negotiating. Did not want to personally take on that responsibility that is yours to negotiate, and apparently this time you felt comfortable negotiating, and that's a good thing and a positive thing, and your recommendations were different this time. But your recommendations to the board and agreements with collective bargaining, once they have an element of expenditure, it becomes the board's responsibility to assure that the expenditures are will actually be affordable and can be, in fact, projected into the duration of that contract. So the negotiation piece is totally yours. I disagree with something you said, that you were asked to negotiate those figures because while those figures were looking promising in appearance as a preliminary step, the way I understand it, most board members needed more information and had more questions that were supposed to be discussed today, and we allotted the time to do that earlier. And the action was projected for the next meeting in December. Secondly, all questions, I also disagree with all questions shared on November 16th during our agenda setting meeting and via email earlier. None of them were new questions. They were all reports that were requested October 16th, with the exception of one more that was requested November 6th. So it's a little difficult that we got those figures last night, as per, Monday night you said, and I thought I heard you wrong. And some of it we just got a couple of hours ago. To really be expected to take action on something that we still have other questions, especially if you could, show us a full budget expectation and projections for the 4 years, then we would be assured that, not bankruptcy, I'm hoping bankruptcy would not be at all part of your recommendation, but fiscal capability without stressing or straining the budget, without having to cut any programs that we don't want to see cut, without having to lay off staff that I personally don't want to ever see laid off. We had layoffs a few years ago. If you can remind me what year we had layoffs, that our most layoffs, that was
12-13.
2013, and I recall maybe 27 staff members from this union. I'm sorry?
It was just our group. The first 2 layoffs was just the aides and monitors, that's it.
No, then we lost
The
librarians.
first 2.
I wasn't.
No, she wasn't. She was
I
very
wasn't.
helpful to us. when
But
we
it's
did.
not, I wouldn't point fingers to other board members either. I wouldn't do that. I see how difficult the process is. I'm living it now. And I've been warned about this before running years ago. It's not an easy process, and it has to be vetted and it has to be thorough, because board members have a fiduciary responsibility, okay, in front of the community, the teachers, the parents, all taxpayers, and most importantly our students, to sustain the district into the future and not just look under our feet. So going back to my question is, we had 27 layoffs, I believe, in this particular collective bargaining group.
And we
In
gained them
addition-
all, and we gained them all back, so that goes to show you that the budget is getting better, because now we're back at 92.
And we want to make
So
sure
we
we
gained
never
all
go
those
back.
we gained all those 27 people back.
And I'm really glad we were able to do that. And that comes with what? Fiduciary responsibility and being able to guarantee that those layoffs don't happen, that building closure that has never been brought to this board. wanna enforce that that has never been discussed officially, but is kind of an undercurrent, you know,
We're not a third
secretive,
world country.
conversation.
It's not a third world country, we're not
Okay.
in a
I-
poor community.
If you will let me, just, what were the layups? I believe social workers, library media specialists, technology specialists
And
were laid
we're
off,
bringing them
and
back too.
teachers.
We've
And I
got
wanna make sure we never have to do this again, because anybody,
We brought social workers back and
Yeah.
speech therapists.
and I'm really glad about that, thank you. And that was Board of Education and administration collaborative work,
Working
so,
together, which is what I said.
working together.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. And crunching the numbers and being responsible, so this is what we are doing, basically. Any further comments?
Don't have abandoned buildings here. Let's just vote, let's vote. Come on,
Call for the question.
let's get it done.
I'm calling for the question.
Robert's rules. Robert's rules.
Okay, so I'm gonna speak for myself here, and anybody who would like to speak for themselves is welcome to do so, and then we'll move on the motion. It is very important that our administration looks at our salary schedules in comparison with others. That was one of the inquiries I've made.
You mean other districts?
Yes, sir.
Like the stature of this district
Yes,
and the historical stature of this district?
I'm sorry.
And what
Mr.
this-
Auerfeld?
What this district has meant to the district?
We always want to be forefront and on the top. That is everyone's intention. And I'll do that. We'll do that together.
With all due respect, since I've been the person at the table the whole time, then I
Yes, but I'm,
wanted to wait for.
one second, but it's not public participation. How close we are to the tax cap and assuring that it's not pierced is something I'd like to see on paper and reported. I'd like to see that, I'm sorry. Okay, one second, I'll just finish what I'm saying and then we'll see how we should do anything. And the budget general picture that we were not given with all, please let me just finish because I'm done.
The weatherman couldn't even predict what took place during the storm. I mean, we had a backup in Suffolk.
Miss
They could
Marina,
predict
just one
the
second, I'll figure out
snowstorm.
how to do that. Just give me a chance, please. Thank you. I'm just waiting for order. Thank you. I have many more financial unanswered questions. Speaking for myself, I can't speak for my colleagues. As a matter of fact, I actually asked if we can be there to hear those answers if the administration was not providing to us, and was told not a good idea. Not you. So I am missing information, and tonight and last night was not the right time to get all information to make such an important financial decision that takes this district into the next 4 years. And if you will excuse me 1 second, I need to know how to go about the next piece. Thank you, hold on 1 second. while it's out of the order of business of the business meeting, I would like to, at my discretion as board president, allow Ms. Patty Marina to please come to the lectern. And I really plead to everyone to be very quiet. As you know, I want to hear from her, and we all want to hear from her, so this is important. Thank you.
First of all, I want to apologize to the five of you that I'm cutting out of order. So, but, good evening. My name is Patty Marina. I'm a proud graduate of Suffern School System. I can honestly say I personally am proud to be a Mountie. I've been a sixth grade teacher here in the Suffern School District for the last 25 years. I wear the hat of a chief negotiator, and I'm one of the vice presidents of the Suffern Education Association. My most important hat is I'm a proud mother of 2 students in the Suffern High School, and proudly a taxpayer in this community. As you can see, many members of the SEA have shown up tonight expecting to hear a discussion, which they've gotten a good one, and I appreciate that, regarding the action item on the agenda that pertains to our collective bargaining agreement. It is extremely disheartening that the conversations that have gone on and hearing people's positions. As the board is aware, the superintendent and the negotiation team for the SEA have been working for the last 4 months to put this agreement together. Dr. Adams, I respect and I appreciate the open and honest conversation. It is understandable you may have questions regarding this agreement. This package has been on the table for well over 6 weeks. The SEA sat with Dr. Adams numerous times, going over numbers, the numbers you are asking for, the total cost of this package. The district also employs an entire business department who should be quite capable of hashing out all of the costs associated with this agreement. Amani, you called me. We had a very lengthy conversation in early October regarding this new collective bargaining agreement. Our conversation occurred.
I will interrupt. You
No,
contacted me and I replied. Thank you.
You called me, but we won't get into semantics. Our conversation occurred prior to you receiving the actual proposal from Dr. Adams. During our conversation, I offered to provide you with any information and or assistance that might help better you and your colleagues here to better understand the SEA position. I emphasized to you that I was willing to sit with you and any board member who might have any questions or concerns. As of tonight, you have never reached out to me to voice any questions or concerns. Additionally, I asked Dr. Adams to make the board aware that I would make myself available if any information was needed. I've been on the negotiating team for the last 20 years. I've had the pleasure of wearing the chief negotiator hat for my union for the last 4 contracts. I'm proud to say that the Suffern Education Association has always been a cooperative partner with the district and the Board of Education. We have been transparent and fair to the district. To not see this agreement be voted on tonight is a disappointment to the negotiating team and the 403 members that are part of this union. I look forward to the vote. I think it's time, definitely overdue. I want to know where you stand, and we proceed from there. Thank you.
Ms. Marina. Graciously agreed. This is a conversation that needs to happen. We need to get answers and get them promptly and do our job. And so I'm not shying away from what's happening tonight.
Let's just start the questions. It's late. We
Yeah.
all have work in the morning.
So thank you for graciously accepting to take questions. Ms. Marina, you mentioned that the offer on the MOA tonight has been in the works for 6 weeks. but the two offers we were given on October 16th did not include tonight's. So if you can clarify when that came into play, because the first time we saw that was after the initial two offers. Thank you.
With all due respect to Dr. Adams, I don't represent your team. I meet with my negotiating team daily, I update weekly, I update my president weekly. So where that breakdown in communication is comes on your side between the dynamics. I can tell you, Dr. Adams, since October 2nd, and I have agreed in the merits of a proposal. I then, as Mr. Donnelly said, 100% correct, you guys countered back at your 1.6182224. I brought that back to my team. Our team agreed to it.
And when was that roughly? The timetable is not.
Well, October 3rd is where I was told it was going to be shared. I was told that the president of the board declined the folders being shared. So then that got projected back to the October, don't quote my dates.
So you had the 1.61822 and 24
We
since
did not,
October
you
3rd?
countered that back to me on the 16th.
Oh, okay.
So then on the 16th is when I brought it back, we countered back to you, and that's.
You were told on October 16th that this Board of Education has that counter proposal?
No, it was shared with me that there was the concern, which Dr. Adams had shared all the way throughout the process of your your state aid concern. So there was always the conversation that the first year, if we could be gracious and help out the district.
From the get-go, because your second
Which has really
proposal
been our theme
had.
for the last 8 years, as Dr.
Right.
Adams shared. And I think as you see here, as a taxpayer, many of us are here, we're willing to work. So I heard that, and that's where the conversation then was directed more towards the 1.6. He did not tell me that.
Starting October 16th.
You're narrowing down the dates, sure, sounds great,
Okay,
16.
all right, because our only meetings in the past since the first folder was October 16th and November 6th. I can tell you that on October 16th, this Board of Education, although the superintendent has the legal right to negotiate the contract, on October 16th, we did not authorize representing us that those numbers were acceptable. We had not given that authorization, so that it is, you're very accurate, there's a break in communication again.
Well, it's the dynamics here, and I think out of all due respect right now, I'm gonna ask you guys to vote on it. If you guys decided to no, I'll see you on January 15th, but I will tell you right now, this isn't a threat, it's a promise, it's gonna cost you a lot more.
Okay, any questions on that side? I'm sorry, they asked to talk.
No, that's fine, but I'm just saying. I understand.
Yes, it is, it's still on the floor. To clarify, the item being on the agenda tonight, since comments were made regarding this, we received information of the fact that our policy requires these items to be in conjunction between the president and the superintendent. This is a recurring theme. Unfortunately, it's not the first time that items have been added to the agenda or an agenda has been activated.
Can we have Dr. Adams speak to this?
Of course. While I'm finishing or when I finish? Thank you very much. So what I was trying to say is that I met with Dr. Adams, took the time to recount the events of the last few days. We're usually scheduled to meet on Thursday for agenda activation. Instead, because of the weather and other personal reasons, the schedule was The meeting was pushed to Friday, we met Friday morning, we were handed an agenda, and the agenda did not include this item. So this is of utmost concern, because our policy requires that the agenda we agree to in that meeting, whether it was Thursday or Friday, includes all our action items, and that no action items get added beyond that without us running it by each other and being being good with both parties. The president, I'm sorry?
What number is that? What policy?
Okay, 2342 and 3120, please check them, and there's been, yes, 3120 and 32. All right, hold on. 2342, sorry, my numbers are getting, 2342, Mr. Marks, and 3120, yes.
That's the one in consultation with the board president?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. By the same token, I actually forgot to mention an item that day, and I did not request our board clerk to post the item. I sent Dr. Adams a message, and if he had said, no, you can't talk about this, that would be how it is. So in consultation, both of us. And that assures the communication collaboration that's expected in setting agendas. So I'm just a disclaimer, because again, I was given credit for getting this on the agenda. It was put on the agenda without prior discussion. It was added to the agenda on Friday night. The recommendation was made from our legal counsel that it gets removed on behalf of the board, and it was not removed because we wanted to have the thorough numbers and perhaps vote on this on December 4th. So we are being pushed to vote on this tonight because it was never removed, and therefore you had to witness discussions that could have been already done and over with, and numbers that we could have already discussed, and not just get the numbers last night and some of it today. So that's my disclaimer. Dr. Adams, go ahead, please.
Sure. Mr. Marks referenced policy 2342, and I'd like to just walk through that a little bit. It's been a confusing point for some people over the last 2 or 3 years. But if you look at the very first statement in the policy, the superintendent, comma, in consultation with the board president, comma, shall prepare the agenda for the board meeting. Okay? Now, I'm sure there's some English teachers out here. I see a few. I believe in consultation with is an idiom. I'm a math person. I'm not an English person. But it seems like the stumbling part is, what does that language mean? In consultation with. Did you have a discussion? Did you talk about it? Unlike what I just heard, it does not mean agreement at all. It says the board or the superintendent is the one who prepares the agenda. I don't require approval by anybody. I'm not really interested if somebody wants to tell me to veto something. We'll have a conversation, but ultimately that responsibility falls on me to prepare the agenda. It was clear last week when I sent the memo out, I was putting it on the agenda. We had a snow day on Friday, as I said previously. I was handed the agenda drafted by the district clerk. She came in on Friday, so hats off to her. And I got it just prior to the meeting. But it does not require approval by anybody. In consultation with, a discussion, talk about, that's really end of story. Now as it relates to policy, and it was referenced policy 3120, the policy 2410, 3120, and 3300 invoke upon me an affirmative responsibility as it relates to policy. I'm required to implement them, I'm required to enforce them, and I'm required to interpret them. So as I look at 2342, the interpretation seems pretty clear on its face. To the extent Councilor Fromson has been invoked here that it should be taken off the agenda, a legal opinion is based upon the facts that are provided, or the information. I won't say facts, the information provided. And in this case, you look at the policy is clear on its face, I don't know how it can be any clearer, does not require approval by anyone.
Okay, Dr. Adams, is there a reason you can give me that when you met on Friday to review the agenda as per policy at the schedule you chose, that I was handed an agenda that does not have this item, if you have been planning to put it on all along?
Amani, I do not type the agenda. The district clerk types the agenda.
So this is now not gonna be our responsibility, it's who typed it. So when there's something missing on the agenda, you and I discussed, there's an item missing, by the way, so even though you don't have it in print, we're gonna be adding this and that, or we think of something together and we add as we speak. How come you didn't mention that you will be adding that item because it's missing on the typed agenda?
I'm not sure I follow you, Amani.
I'm done. Thank you. We will be now voting unless anybody wants to say anything. Ready? Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Mr. Kern? Mr. Shapiro?
Yes.
Mr. Donnelly?
Yes.
Mr. Cairns? All those against signify by saying nay. I'm against. Anyone else? Any abstains? Mr. McKenzie? And Ms. Reamer. Okay, the MOA passes. I'd like to- Okay, order. I'd like to make a motion. Mr. Cairns, Mr. Shapiro, everybody. Action items are still on the table. I'd like to make a motion. Okay, I'd like to make a motion to amend the agenda. To add a resolution and I'm going to read the resolution that I'm suggesting.
Amani, what authority do you do this, please?
I'm sorry, is that Dr. Adams' question or you?
No, that's my question.
Okay, any board member can put a motion and it could be turned down or accepted. Anyone, not just the board president.
What policy is that?
I'm sorry, it's the open meeting law, Dr. Adams, which supersedes policy, as you're very well aware.
In fact, it does not. So I'll point out to the board president that it would be a violation of the commissioner's decision. Open meetings law does not address agenda setting at all. In fact, if you look in the open meetings law, the word agenda does not appear in any shape, form, or fashion.
I'm
The school
sorry.
board is required to follow its policies, and to try to amend the agenda at a board meeting is a violation of policy, plain and simple.
So all the amendments that have happened historically in board meetings are all illegal.
The superintendent, because he has the authority to prepare the agenda, can amend the agenda. The board president does not have that authority, nor does the board as a whole have that authority.
Okay, so it's as per meeting law, anybody attending a meeting can make a motion. The motion fails or is accepted. Dr. Adams has allowed these motions in the past, so I'm going to again ask our counsel to come in the hallway. Thank you. Please hold. I apologize for you guys. I'm very sorry. But we'll have to make a motion to go into exec. I need a,
Excuse me.
first.
No, Marty, you love to talk about the stuff.
I need a first, sorry. I need a motion to go into executive
That's
to,
outrageous.
as per the attorney's request. Mr. Karen, second.
There's
We need
nothing
to take
else
a
going on
vote.
here.
Please come back.
No, it's bullshit. We have to do is, let's do it later in executive session. You know about the stuff.
Okay.
Armani.
Mr. McKenzie.
No, it's nonsense. Just do this.
Our attorney would like to do this in executive. Okay. Mr. Karen's made a motion, second.
Second.
Mr. McKenzie, all those in favor signify by saying aye, and we're voting to clarify on going to consult with the attorney. Aye. Mr. Shapiro?
No.
Nay. Mr. Donnelly?
Nay.
Mr. Kern?
Nay.
And I'm an aye, so that's 43. We will be back as fast as possible. Yes, we'll be.
So I just want to take this opportunity to thank all of you for your wonderful, amazing work. And I know that many of you have somewhere to be in like less than 8 hours. So principals, we're going to go ahead and do our elementary CSID presentation. It's amazing. Thank you all the elementary teachers, secondary staff, the secondary principals did a fabulous job 2 weeks ago. And I totally understand if you would prefer to watch it on the video once it comes out. So we really appreciate everything you do. Very happy for you. But understand, because I know some of you are giving extra help at 6 and 6:30 tomorrow morning. So thank you.